Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll get started now. Um, just to make sure, can people chat and type in the chat box to say that they can hear me, just so I know that I'm not talking into the void. Perfect, thank you for that. All right, well, welcome to another Thursday afternoon Layers of London webinar. We've done a few of these now, so I think we've got the hang of it, but you never know how technology is going to go. But I have high hopes. Just to introduce the topic for this week, so it's on the Charles Booth Poverty Maps tracing tool that we've developed with LSE Library, which is a crowdsourcing activity that we're hoping will give us a deeper understanding of the Charles Booth maps. So the structure will just be a bit of an introduction into the maps, and I'll show you how you can see that on Layers of London, and also a few other good resources that you might be interested in having a look at. And then we'll have a look at the tracing tool itself and do a bit of a demonstration, and hopefully you'll all be very enthused by this activity, and we'll dedicate time every day to trace some squares and color them in. So just to introduce myself, I'm Liam Cunningham. I'm the volunteer coordinator with Layers of London. Also here today is my colleague Adam Corsini, who's the public engagement officer. He'll just be in the chat box helping out if we need it. And just how this works is that only I can be heard or seen. All your cameras and microphones will be off for the duration of the webinar, but you can still get in touch. You can type your questions in the Q&A and the chat box. There'll be time for questions at the end, but if you want anything clarified or me to go over anything, feel free to put in a question at any point. Okay, so just for a bit of introduction to Charles Booth, in case anyone doesn't know who he was. So he was alive from, I think, 1840 to 1916. And he was a businessman, successful in the shipping trade. But we remember him today for his work as a social researcher and as a reformer. So he was interested in kind of finding out the extent of poverty in London at the time of the late 1800s, because he felt that the data that was out there at the time wasn't very thorough or helpful. So he set out doing this monumental task, which was eventually published in his multi-volume book, The Life and Labour of London's People. So he started with trial project in Tower Hamlets in the East End to find out how widespread poverty was, and he found that 35% of the population were living in abject poverty. So then that was in the, I think, 1889 that was published, and then over the next decade he expanded this survey to cover all of London. And what is most famous from this survey is, of course, the color-coded maps that paint such kind of a visual picture of what life was like at that time in London. So I'll just show you how you can examine these maps on Layers of London. You should all be able to see my screen. I'm on the homepage of Layers of London right now, so hopefully you're all familiar, but just in case, just navigate to the map section. So this button up here at the top, click on map, and that will bring you to this main map page of Layers of London. And just hide this bit for now. And I'll just hide those black pins, which are records that people have added, but just hide that for now, because what we're interested in is looking at the map. So to navigate to the layers page, you click the layers button on the left-hand panel, and then you find the Charles Booth map. You just scroll down, show more, and there it is. So you can enable that here. by pressing use this layer, and then you can close the map layers page and it should show up. Yeah, there it is. So many of you might have seen this before and know what all these different colors mean, but I'll just explain that for anyone who hasn't had that much experience with these maps before. So what he did was using research that was already available and a team of researchers, he surveyed the class makeup of every street in London and created this color-coded map. So each of these colors indicates a different general level of income for that building or that household. So what we see here, you can see these yellow squares, so they're the very wealthy, which this is around Regent's Park, so no change there. And the red across the street from there, that's very well-to-do. The more kind of middling red is middle class, and then it goes to blue, which is poor, and then he has this category of black, which is the lowest category, and he calls it vicious or semi-criminal, so parts of London that he considered dangerous and riven with crime. So it's quite interesting to have an explore of the map and to check out if there's an area you're particularly interested in, or what was the area where you lived, what did he consider at the time. And it's very interesting how, just like we could see around Regent's Park, and then there's, when you move over more into the East End, there's a lot more blue and the darker colors. So you can kind of still see this London that he was researching reflected in the London we have around us today. So this is on Layers of London, where you can look at this map, and we also have hundreds of other maps that you can layer on top and compare and contrast. But just to point you in the direction of some other resources that are out there, if you're interested in learning more about the Charles Booth map. So we got this map from LSE Library, who hold physical copies of the map, and they digitized it for their website, which is booth.lse@ac.uk. So you can see, similar to our site, you can see the map in a digital format where you can zoom in and search for the streets you're interested in. But what is interesting about this site is that they also have copies of his notebooks, which if you click this button in the top right-hand corner, they show up on the map, so you can find a particular street and see what was the research that Charles Booth was basing his color coding on. So you can just City Road, you can click in, and it shows you what notebook entries relate to that road or that area that you clicked on, and you can view the page, and it should show up. And yet you can see these handwritten notes from the time. So you can see what was said about your street. And also on this site are some other good resources if you want to learn more. So they've got different blog entries and some highlights from the notebooks on these different themes, and then points you in the direction of other resources as well. They've also published a book recently called Charles Booth's London Poverty Maps, which is a very attractive volume if you are looking for a present for anyone or for yourself. I'd recommend it. And just another thing I want to recommend, if anyone wants to see more, there's a BBC series from a few years ago called A Secret History of Our Streets. Which it looked at the history of different streets in London over the past 100 years and how they've changed, but used the Booth maps as a jumping off point. And it explains a lot about how he conducted this research, but also is a really interesting history of the different parts of London. Okay, so now I'll just return to the Layers of London website to show you the tracing tool that I talked about earlier. So you can find this tracing tool by, if you're on the home page, you scroll down a bit, and we have, in this section here, help us trace Booth's map of London. So if you click this Start Tracing button, it will first bring you to this page, which is a blog entry by someone from LSE Library, which explains a bit the background of the project and also has some tips and tricks on doing the tracing. So if you make sure to have a look at that when you get the chance, if you're interested in doing some of this. And then you click on that Start Tracing at the top and it'll load up this site. So this kind of gives you the basic information you need to get started. And just to explain a bit why we're doing this, so this project originates from LSE Library as well. Researchers there were trying to, they put together that site that we just saw, but trying to think about other ways that the map can be used to conduct kind of deeper research into Class in London and Booth's work. So they discovered they have two issues that they want to get sorted, which was one, getting all the street names that Booth used, some of which are not the same street names that we use now. So getting them digitized and associated with the various locations so that the map is searchable by word like that, but also getting the different colors. So organizing in such a way so that the computer knows where is each color. So say they found there was no easy way of asking the computer, show me everywhere that's red or show me everywhere that's yellow. So what we need to do that is to trace each individual square and assign a color to it. So LSE library staff realized this would take thousands of hours of staff time, and not something that the university management was likely to approve of. So they thought maybe that we could use crowdsourcing, which, if anyone is familiar with the Layers of London site, you know that's kind of thing we're big into. Our map is covered with stories that people, just regular people, have added that from research they've done, and we're also in the process of completing our crowdsourced georeferencing project for post-war RAF images. So they thought we'd be an appropriate host for this project. So, oops, sorry, I shouldn't have zoomed in like that. So that's what we're doing now. So the idea is, yeah, as I mentioned, you trace each individual building and assign it a color. So as you can see here, the map is divided up into squares, and they're all different colors. So the ones that are yellow, there's two phases for each square to be before it's considered completed. So these ones that don't have a yellow or green color, they haven't been touched yet. But then once they are, they get traced and assigned the colors by one person. Then they go into the review pot, and then they get reviewed by a second person. And then they go into the completed pot and they turn green, like we can see these green ones. So as you can see, we have quite a bit of work to do before all this is green. We have had some enthusiastic people in South London. Almost all of that has been done once, but we need it done again to make sure that all the work was done correctly. And then huge swaths of North London have yet to be looked at. So hopefully some of you will be interested in cracking into this project and getting it moving. So just check if I have anything else to say about that. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate how the tracing thing works. So I'll click on one of these boxes that has not been done yet. So just at a random, hopefully this one won't be too tricky. So yeah, it brings me into this box, and it is now my job to trace around all these individual colors. So actually there's a lot going on here, so it might take me a few minutes, but that's okay. And just to get started, you click begin, like you see over here. So you draw the shapes. So I'll do that now. So click down here, draw a shape, and your cursor will change into this crosshair. looking thing, and then you can draw around the boxes. So how you do that is you click on one corner and then click on another corner, click on the other corner. Um, it's very straightforward. And then this box pops up to ask you what color it was. So I know that one is red. Sometimes when I first got started, I thought it was hard to determine between the red and soft red. But after you've done it a few times, you kind of get the hang of it and find that red is actually a good bit redder than the soft red ones. So then that's pretty much it. You just have to keep going until you've completed the square. So you pick the different colors for each one, and like so. And I'm just going to keep doing this for a minute or two more. So if anyone has any questions about this bit, you can type them in the chat box now, and I can talk about that. So you'll notice that this one, for instance, has an edge to it. That's a different color. So I don't know. I'm not sure why that was. That we thought the front of the building was richer than the back of the building. I don't know how that worked. But you need to make sure you color in both bits. Okay, so we have some questions that I'll just get to. So someone asked, I'm not sure what the object of tracing red is because the box looks red already. So the correct is red already, but currently, so the idea is that that information only exists as like a picture. So the map is red, and we know the map is red to look at it, but to get the computer to recognize it as red so that we can use these for our research purposes, we need to tell it it's red, because unfortunately there isn't a magic button to press and it'll tell the computer everywhere that's red. So this is a man-hour job. So yeah, it's because we know it's red, but it's just that we need to tell the computer that it's red so that we have this data to work with to do kind of computer-based analysis of the maps. Do I have any tips for circular buildings? So yeah, like you can see that one had kind of a round front, but it doesn't actually have to be super exact because we obviously don't have the round option here. So it's okay if it's kind of, say if it was a circular building, it would be okay if it was just a octagon or a hexagon or something. So it doesn't have to be the curved buildings, because it'll just indicate that to the program. It doesn't need to be exact. And someone else suggested, I wonder if the frontage was the ground floor and was shop or business and residential above behind somewhere. Oh yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I suppose that happens. Many color patches do not agree with the polygons on the base map. I guess we take the extent of the base map polygons to be correct and the overbleed to be a printing error. Yeah, I would say so, because I think, yeah, the base map I think was the OS map, and then they added the colors to it, which I guess whatever method they did, there's some bleed, but that doesn't affect our project, I don't think. Yeah, so that's an interesting suggestion about the frontage and the ground floor. I think I'll need to get in touch with someone who's done some research on that and find out the answer. And yeah, this is around King's Cross, which I think, as you say, someone in the chat has said it was notoriously deprived area. So it's surprising to see these bits that are colored red. But I think actually that's kind of what we find in looking at the map and exploring. You find that a lot, like even say in the rich areas around Chelsea and Kensington, where there's lots of yellow and bright red, that not very far off are patches of the darker colors of the blues and the blacks. So it's just kind of, I think, we even see today that like in the densely populated London, that even in areas that have a certain reputation, they have, they live close beside each other, the different income groups. So you kind of just keep doing this until the box is finished. And this, I picked this one, which has a lot going on in it. So it takes a while. But I think once you get into it, it's quite meditative. It's a digital version of coloring in books, the mindfulness ones. Did he not do the City of London? Yeah, someone asked that. And I think I asked someone at LSE Library before, and I think it was decision on purpose because there had, because of the density of population. I actually can't remember what he said at the moment. Sorry, so I won't give you a bad answer to that, but there was a reason he didn't do the City of London. I can't remember it right now. But I'd say if you've had a look on that LSE website that I showed you earlier, it will say. So yeah, we have another question here. What do you do with the buildings that straddle the squares? So I would just continue on out and finish the square. You can actually keep drawing as far as you want, but you should just finish the building that, if it has a significant portion within your square, I would always just finish the whole thing. Sometimes you'll click into a square and there'll be bits of buildings done, and that's okay too. The squares thing is just an organizational way of doing it to make it a manageable work for people, but all the data goes to the same place. So grid. So we have another question. Where did Charles Booth live or stay when he was doing this? So I'm not sure about that, but it actually, so I always thought that he went around to every single street and took notes upon it, which apparently is not true. So what he actually did was he used resources that already existed. I think in some cases it was some work in the field, but there was also he used resources that existed, especially from school records and I think truancy officers that would have taken notes about different neighborhoods. So it's less labor intensive than it sounds, than I thought initially anyway, because I thought he went around to every single street, but which is a romantic idea, but apparently it was more desk-based than you would have thought. But I'm not sure where he lived when he did this. So I noticed I'm going low on time and there's actually a lot of little bits more left to do in this, so I might just save this for later so I can show you the next part. But rest assured, I will come back to this and finish the work. So just to clarify, what you want to do is to color in all these different patches of color that you see, and assign them a color. And if there's something that's, say you see this red box that's kind of hanging outside the box, it's okay. You can just finish that all and it'll just be a bit less work for the person who does the adjacent square to do. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the map and show you the other part. So that was doing the initial map, doing the initial tracing. But as I said before, there's two stages. So there's, once it's been done once, it turns yellow, and then it's up for review. And after you review it, it turns green. So I'll click into this one here that's yellow just to show you how that bit works. That's quite straightforward, I think. So you have a look here. So you click into this one that someone has already done, and you have a look around to see if it's correct, if it's been done correctly. So it looks like they've traced all the squares. You can kind of tell that they have the outline around them. So it looks like they've done all that well, and I just maybe check. You can go into edit mode and check the color that's been selected. So this one's red, which I agree with, and then just check another one just to make sure that they were doing the colors correctly, and that's yellow. So I agree with that too. So I think this one is good. So I'm going to click I'm done. So now that's been completed, that one. So I go back to the map, and then I can go review any others that I want. I'll just click in again to another one just to show that again. Begin, edit mode just to check the colors. Okay, something's happened here which made it go a bit off. I think that's a bug, but I can see which one is associated with which one anyway. So that looks fine to me. Yeah, they've popped back now. I don't know how that happened. But just to point out another thing, so you'll see some of these buildings, they don't have a color. They have like a gray, they're hatched gray. So these are non-residential buildings, so they weren't coded. So you don't need to trace them or give them a color. Okay. And Anne asked, did they do the hatched blue? I think, do you mean that one of the colors is hatched blue? Because that is correct. There is a hatched blue as well, which I think is in between the dark blue and the reds. So it's poor, but not the poorest. So I think hopefully that made sense. And we might just have time for questions now if anyone is not clear on anything. I can answer the questions now. So just let me know. Oh, sorry, Bruce. Yeah, I didn't show you how to delete. So I can go back in there. Oh yeah, I didn't show you how to edit. Thank you for reminding me. So I've clicked into this one that has already been done, but just to show you the edit and delete features of the drawing. So say if you find that if you yourself or you find that someone else didn't do a shape correctly, that's okay. You can just change it by clicking the edit shape button. So then once all these little dots will show up, and you'll be able to change the shape of it. So you can just drag it out if you want. And then you click save, and the shape is a bit different. The shape is different as you want it. But I'll just bring this one back. So that is correct. So that's fine, you just save that, and then if you want to delete a shape, if you add an extra one by accident, or if you're reviewing someone's work and see how and want to change it, you can just so I click delete, and I just click on that box, and then it's gone. but I'm going to cancel that because, yeah, and then I cancelled it, so it just popped back as it was. Oh, sorry, Anne, I didn't realize that you were referring to that box that um, I was looking at. So I think, as far as I could tell, they had done everything. I think maybe around the hatch blue, the lines are a bit lighter, so they're a bit harder to see. But they did look. That looks like it had all been done fine. Yeah, and Gordon just asked how to get from the home screen to here. So I'll just go over that one more time. So to go from layersoflondon.org, you're on the homepage here, scroll down, and it's this, over here, there's some different activities to do, and in this right corner, it's the booth map, and you just need to click Start Tracing, and it'll bring you to this blog page, but then you need to click through again to trace Boots London. And then that'll bring you to the tracing tool. So hopefully that makes sense. But as I said, if there's any, I mentioned that blog piece earlier, that was written by Neil from the LSE library, which includes some background information and also some tips on how to do the drawing. So if there was anything that I wasn't clear about there, or anything you want a refresher on, it's all written out here, so you can have a look at that. So a few more minutes for questions if anyone has any. Sorry, someone asked the difference between Lloyd George, Domesday Survey, and Booth, and I actually don't know. But I'll do some research. Okay, everyone. Well, if there's no questions, I suppose I'll wrap it up there. But thanks for coming. And this is the last of our April webinars, but we're going to be announcing some more for May. We've already announced this morning, we're going to have a mini conference panel event on the 13th of May at noon. And that will be hearing from some different projects that we've worked with over the past few months, including someone from the Courtauld Gallery, someone from Youth Club Archive, and someone talking about the Newington Green Meeting House. So you can sign up for that, but we'll also be organising more webinars at this time on Thursdays at 4 o'clock, and that will go out on the newsletter and also on our Twitter. So make sure to keep an eye and to book your spot if you're interested in joining. And if you like Layers of London, make sure you tell your friends and family all about it. Follow us on social media, like our things, tell everyone. So I hope that's interesting. And if you do have any questions about this or anything else, you can always feel free to email us at layersoflondon@london.ac.uk. All right, everyone. Thank you.